Grace and peace, everybody. Grace and peace. This is Bishop Marvin L. Sapp, and I want to welcome each and every individual to another Praise in Place. I'm so very grateful and honored to have this opportunity today to talk about some things that I believe that are significantly important to what we need to be recognizing, realizing, and most importantly, observing and getting information on how to navigate through this season of life. As we are preparing to open up, as we are preparing to come out, if you will, and for some states that, in particular, the state that I've been living in, I don't know if the state of Texas ever closed, but, just understanding how we are supposed to navigate in this season and what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm so very grateful that I have, some of the most prolific, gifted, insightful individuals that you can probably have in America to be a part of this conversation. And I'm glad that they've allowed me to sit in on it because to be perfectly honest, I don't necessarily feel like I'm qualified to be a part of this conversation, but I'm so very grateful that they thought it not robbery to want to spend a little time with us and, give us some information that we need as we move forward in this particular moment and in this particular season. I'm so blessed to be a part of this conversation today. This individual is the president of the National Urban League. So I'm very grateful to have Mr. Mark Moriel to be with us today. Amen. So it's just a great privilege and honor to have him to be with us. How are you, Mr. Moriel?
Hey, great to be with the Bishop. Always good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, super. It's great to have you. It's great that you're here with us. Then we also have Dr. Lee Andreas Lyburn. She is the Associate Director of the Offices of Minority Health and Health Equality, or Health Equity, at the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. How are you, Dr. Lyburn, today?
Good. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you all. It's a pleasure.
But thank you so much.
Well.
Thank you for taking time out your busy schedule. We also have John Bryant, who is the founder and chairman and chief executive officer of nonprofit Operation Hope. He's the chief executive officer of the Bryant Group Ventures and the Promise Home Companies, the co-founder of Global Dignity. John just does a whole lot of stuff. So I'm just glad that he's with us today as well. How you doing, John?
I'm deeply honored to be with you, and nothing really matters today other than this because my family actually think I'm cool after they love them some Bishop Sapp.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm honored. When we were off camera, I called John Mr. Bryant. I was trying to be respectful and stuff. And he's like, no, that's my daddy's name. I'm John. So I'm just grateful to be able to have this conversation. And last but not least, this individual, oh my God, I'm not going to date myself, but he's known me since I was a teenager. And I'm so very grateful that he's with us. He's the pastor of the Apostolic Faith Church, and he's also an attending physician specializing in pediatric hematology and oncology at the Ann and Robert Lowry Children's Hospital of Chicago, none other than Dr. Horace Smith. How are you, sir?
I'm doing quite well, Dr. Marvin Sapp. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just so very grateful that each and every one of you all thought it not robbery to take time out of your very busy schedules to be with us today. There's so many things that, I want us to talk about, specifically as it pertains to not just COVID, but just the day and time in which we live as African Americans, and specifically, how should we navigate through this season, during this moment, during this time. And one of the questions that I have, and I'm going to ask Mr. Moriel, and then you all can piggyback, because again, this is just a conversation that we're having. There are so many questions that I actually have, and I believe that this conversation is without question important, because as we begin to shift, as we begin to navigate supposedly at the end of this whole pandemic situation, there are things that we as a community, an urban community, really need to understand, and how it is that we're supposed to move forward in this time. So I was going to throw this question out to Mr. Moriel, and just if y'all want to piggyback on it, grab a hold to it. I think it's something that we need to discuss. And I guess the question is what are some major challenges that you have faced in the pandemic, since the pandemic has started, and what has surprised you the most?
Well, let me just say, Bishop, I want to thank and American Urban Radio Network, you and the co-panelists for being able to have this discussion today. I'll say tomorrow, my wife and I will get our vaccine shots. We both had COVID at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic, not knowing what to do. When my wife became ill, it was before testing was available. It was when doctors would not see anyone. We did several remote visits and basically did the best we could. She had about a week to 10-day bout. I fell under the weather for about 4 or 5 days, not as severe as she, and did not really know until I took my own physical last summer, when the doctor called me and told me that I had COVID. It is nothing to play with. In addition to that, I've had friends and extended family members lose their life from COVID. It is nothing to play with. From my own perspective, as a leader of the National Urban League, we were required to try to continue serving the community while working from home. Mm-hmm. All of our employees all across the nation and in New York and in Washington, while working from home and while not knowing how the community would respond through the rocky times when there was denial from the White House and denial in the community and just total confusion about whether this was serious or not, as we knew it was. We knew early on that it was serious. I heard several people in our community tell me, Black folk can't get it. You're going to be all right. It never made any sense, but it just goes to show you the level of misinformation that was spreading. Then, after we demanded it, many demanded it, we demanded it, then the numbers broken down by race exposed the disparity that we have seen. Where are we today? First of all, we've got to continue to follow this guidance. Wearing a mask is uncomfortable, but necessary. Staying at home, if you can, may not be the best, but it's safe. Going to work, if you must, is risky, but wear a mask. Stay safe, stay healthy, don't slip. We have to do that. We know that the vaccines are available. We know that there's reasonable lack of trust in some parts of our community, but we just got some research back that we conducted with the Congressional Black Caucus, which shows that 70% of African Americans, notwithstanding some reservations, are saying, I'm prepared to take the vaccine and take the shot, that this is the best way to get back to a situation of some reasonable normalcy in our nation. But I think I've said to people, and I truly mean this, if you're hesitant or don't trust, please consult a physician. Talk to your doctor. Don't make a decision based on what you see on the internet, based on what you hear, based on misinformation. If you have a problem with taxes, consult an accountant. If you have a legal issue, consult a lawyer. If you need spiritual advice, consult a licensed minister. Same thing. For a medical issue, consult a physician. So we are in a situation where, once again, John Hope Bryant, our wealth has been eroded, our incomes have been eroded by what has occurred. We face another set of economic challenges as We were just coming back. So the pathway ahead is going to be fraught. Life ain't no crystal stair. And this pathway back is going to be a great challenge, but we all have to be continued resilience, continued determination, continued faith that we will get through this.
Dr. Lyburn, I would like for you to come in and kind of tag that because, you know, again, my daughter, she actually had COVID. My brothers, they had COVID. You know, I had a great friend that just passed away in the last 19 days. We eulogized him, and that was the motivating factor for me to make sure that I started the process. And I just got my first shot on last week, Friday. You know, what is surprising you the most as it pertains to what's going on during this season and during this moment in time?
So let me say that there haven't been many things that have surprised me.
Okay.
What has been, I think, enlightening for others is that there have been health and social inequities that have been borne by the African American community for decades, if not centuries, that when COVID came into play, actually just exacerbated them.
Wow.
One of the things that Mr. Morial didn't mention is that part of what increased the risk for African Americans for COVID infection and severe illness and even death is that as a population, we came into it with a higher prevalence of chronic conditions.
Okay. Like
diabetes, like obesity, like different forms of heart disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. As a population, we have a higher prevalence of those. So when COVID hit, we were at a higher risk. And that was one thing. The other thing that I'm gonna say we discovered is that almost 80% of Black and brown people have working occupations where they couldn't work from home.
Yeah.
And so, where they had very little control over public exposures. And so while our recommendations were, you know, to shelter in place or stay home, everybody couldn't do that.
Right.
The other thing that I think was revealed, not surprising, but for those occupations that don't provide paid sick leave or health insurance, set people up again for not staying home when they had symptoms and going to work, because if they didn't, they weren't going to get paid. And for some, their positions may have been, you know, vulnerable to not being there when they came back. And the other recommendation we made around quarantining at home. And not everybody has, you know, multiple bedrooms or floors or the space where they could do that. And we discovered, some of us, that a lot of people live in multi-generational households. And, you know, grandma and grandpa may have some underlying conditions, and we're going to encounter them in the course of the day because there isn't a basement or a
right,
you know, mother-in-law suite or whatever that's available.
What's that?
You know, as we've been going through the process of what we call the mitigation measures, all these things are coming up for around the country.
Right.
Not things that we would have been surprised about, but for some people they were. And so last May, I came into the what we call the COVID-19 response as the Chief Health Equity Officer. And my permanent job is as the Director of the Office of Minority Health and Health Equity here at CDC. And I've been involved in addressing health disparities and racial and ethnic health disparities for my entire career, which spans now over 3 decades right here at CDC. So we stepped into this place of, okay, there are some things we need to do differently. And we've been doing that ever since. So I think that that's what I would add to what Mr. Morial said, because I certainly don't disagree with his assessment as well. And certainly on our end, we continue to be focused on getting data, getting more complete data from all around the country, so that we know, where to target resources and the kinds of interventions and strategies that we need to make sure are available in the community, so that we can, drive down this burden or flatten the curve, or whatever, the expression is that people can relate to.
That's great information, just simply because, a lot of people assumed that, that COVID was just something that the urban community was catching because we were being irresponsible. When the truth of the matter is that a lot of times it was because we had to go to work, or because we had to, grandma and them stayed with us, or what have you. So it was more, it wasn't that we were being irresponsible. It wasn't that we were trying to catch it, or for some, it wasn't even that we were saying that it wasn't real. It was just, that's the only option that we had, because we had to do what we had to do in order to live. So I appreciate you giving us that information. That was great information. Dr. Smith, I want to ask you a question, because I want to stay in this vein of, talking about the whole health and just understanding that whole concept. How can we encourage the community to follow the science, to use common sense, and to seek professional assistance to address any issue regarding the COVID vaccine? Because again, Mr. Morial and even Dr. Lyburn, she even brought up how, more Dr. Morial brought up how, there is this, fear. I know for myself, just recently, what made me go to even get, my first COVID shot was because I had a friend that passed away. Even though I have the space,
Right.
even though I'm sheltering in place, even though I'm doing all of the things that are necessary in order to ensure my health and my well-being, and I have that opportunity. I have that ability to be able to do all the things that, most urban community individuals aren't able to do. What can we do? What can we share in order to, get rid of the fallacies and or to create a clear understanding of the necessity and need of us being going to get vaccines?
Well, Dr. Sapp, thanks for being so transparent, because I was going to say, you are a person you're affluent. You certainly have access to healthcare. You certainly have access to every resource. The fact that you just went to get your vaccine,
yes, sir,
represents Black people again being behind the 8 ball, because we have allowed our fears to dictate our choices, especially church people. I heard from day one back in March, my friends in ministry saying they weren't going to get COVID because they had faith in God. And then I heard the misapplication of scripture over and over and over again. And I was appalled, because being in healthcare, I saw people dying every day. Your friend jolted you into compliancy. I saw it every day. And I said back in March, we only have 2 choices, COVID or vaccine. There are no other choices. There were never any other choices. We were fed with misinformation. We were fed with political issues of a mask or so forth. But again, as Black people, Dr. Lyburn pointed it out, Mr. Morial so aptly, we started with chronic health conditions. We started with economic deficits. We started behind the 8 ball, and then we, for no other reason but we were misinformed, perpetuated a season of death. And I hate to be so graphic, but I said to my friends, every day in the last 30 days, 3,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. That much we know. I mean, what side effect can be worse than death? And yet, seeing that, we still opted out and said, I'm going to wait. And I would say to them, wait for what? As of today, 50 million Americans have been vaccinated with COVID-19 vaccines. Around the world, over 200 million people have received the vaccine. And guess what? None of them are dying. So we're already more vulnerable. We have a greater prevalence. So we got to ask ourselves, if you're hesitant, what do you need to do to get the truth? So I heard our great brother say this. He's so clear. You need to go to a reputable health professional or trusted minister who has been informed, who will tell you this ain't no joke. Black folk are dying in Chicago. The COVID-19 death rate in Chicago, Black and brown folk represent 73% of all COVID-19 deaths. I've been harping with the mayor, with the governor, and they're trying to address it. I told them as a scientist, if 72% of the people dying are Black and brown, then 72% of the vaccine should be in Black and brown arms. That's what equity really is. And anything less than that is malpractice, and we know it. But I say to my Black brothers and sisters, I don't know what you're waiting for. You're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and people you know are dying for no reason except of our fears. And last thing I'll say is, our fear will not protect us from this virus. Only knowledge. My people are destroyed because they don't know. And if they knew the truth, they would run and demand that they get a vaccine.
And that's, you know what, I believe so strongly that, you know, that's why it's so very important that we have these type of conversations, not only from a faith standpoint, but for those of us who are faith believing individuals, we also understand, I mean, for those who have real sense, we also understand that, you know, since God created everything, he created science as well. So we need to make sure that we are doing all the things that are necessary. And I believe that it is a derelict of responsibility and duty as a preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ, as an individual who pastors the church, that I not share with my members the importance of faith, but also science. That you can have faith in God, but have enough faith in God to go get that shot in your arm.
Well, Brother Marvin, let me interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
You said something very important for people of faith. If God is the author of science, if God is the author of all knowledge,
right?
If the devil comes to kill, what do you think is happening when people are dying? That's the enemy. A vaccine that gives us deliverance has to come from God, yes, because the vaccine protects you from death. So to try to mix up your faith with not taking the vaccine is almost demonic. You are allowing the enemy to make you vulnerable when God has made a way. And I tell you this, thank God for the scientists and give God the glory, but get your vaccine, because healing and health comes from God. And so this has to do with Black people and people of faith to say that there is no contradiction between the vaccine and my faith.
Right.
Because God is the author of knowledge and wisdom that brings health and life.
That's great. That's great information. John, I want to come to you right now because, you know, I just want to stay in this vein. I want to keep us talking about this. And my question to you is how do we continue to stretch, and how do we continue to exercise a forward path and forge new ways to elevate the voices of those who are struggling in this season? How do we do that?
Well, first of all, respect to all my fellow panelists and to you. And before I say anything else, just a moment of lightness. I don't know how you're gonna keep anybody focused, Bishop, on this important conversation. It's very serious. Because my brother Mark wanted to put on a sexy shirt, and that's all anybody's looking at. he went and put on his stretch shirt, he got his muscles popping out, and that's all anybody. Right? I think that first of all, I think we're sitting in a moment in history right now.
Yes, sir.
But history doesn't feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. But that doesn't mean that does not mean that the moment is actually not historic. And I think that what you're all doing now, and what Mark and the Urban League and the NAACP and so many of our frontline organizations have done, and all of you have done, the CDC has done. People didn't even know what the CDC was until 12 months ago. And everybody's experts, right? I think that this will go down as some of your best moments, your brightest shining lights of your mission and your relevancy of the importance that we should not let a crisis go to waste. And we have not let this one go to waste. Yeah. And rainbows only follow storms. Let me tell you, I got my shot on Saturday, and I was serious about it. And my wife had some concerns about the science, and she comes from a medical family. She's getting her shot. My nephew is getting his shot. I was talking to Bishop, all of our hero, Bishop T.D. Jakes this morning, and Bishop Jakes, who respects you highly, said something brilliant. He said, "Look, at this velocity, within 6 months, everybody's going to have either the virus or the vaccine. And I'd rather be with the team that hasn't killed 500,000 people. So sign me up for the vaccine." And he got his shot, and for him and his family. And that is really the blunt common sense assessment, I think, for anybody who is going to, oh, well, people experiment on, look, okay, 30s, 40s, 50s, 1800s, the early 1900s, I understand, absolutely agree. You're in 2021 and rich people getting this. I mean, I was stunned at that number of 72%. But you got 3 presidents taking this shot. You got the guy who won't even mention his name who said it wasn't real taking this shot. You got billionaires taking this shot. This thing does not discriminate. Right. And so I think we need to sort of knock off the nonsense and get on with things that make sense. And I'm not going to get on in the bad space here, but I'm going to cite the Bible. And you tell me if this is right. I believe Proverbs says, to be poor is not to not do is not to not have anything. To be poor is not to not do anything, and lazy hands make a man poor. Well, lazy minds and lazy brains and lazy actions and lazy research, to quote Mr. Morrell, also is a deficit. I think this has pulled back the curtains on what was coming anyway. There was a wealth divide, an income inequality divide. It had been coming anyway. A digital divide. 12 months. And now we see that 41% of all African-American businesses are offline. We now understand that 96% of all Black businesses don't have an employee who couldn't get PPP, which we had some hand in helping to design. Unfortunately, they didn't listen to me fully. But the Biden administration, by the way, has just recently launched something that for 2 weeks, only businesses with 20 employees or less can apply. That's really important. And if you're a sole proprietor, you qualify. If you're a contractor, you qualify. This is that financial literacy thing that's so important because money rolls through all parts of our life. So if you're watching this right now and you got too much month at the end of your money, you don't need another stress on top of your health stress, your health concerns. You don't need one more problem. This is why Black people are not in horror movies, by the way, because when the Amityville horror, when the house says get out, Black folks, we're not curious. For sale sign in the front lawn, we gone because we got enough problems. We don't need a house talking to us, and so we got enough concerns. We don't need to be layering on this financial concerns. So everybody needs to get their earned income tax credit. And if you make less than $60,000 a year, and you're watching this, and you just said, what did he just say? Congratulations, you have a check coming to you. Call the Urban League. Go to a VITA site. Go to Operation Hope, to a Hope Inside locations. I'm in 26 states now, and it's free. It's free 99, free 99. It's free. Come to us. 1 out of 4 Americans, Bishop, who qualify for EITC, never asked for it. That's $20 billion a year. So if you make $25,000 a year, make this really plain. You're in a small town in Texas. You make $25,000 a year. You have 3 children. The government owes you a check. Hold on. For $26,000 cash, because you qualify for about $7,000 of EITC, just under that, for 1 year. But if you haven't filed, it's retroactive for 3 years. So the math is that's 18 grand, give or take. Then you have a child tax credit because of the CARE Act It's one time only. It's cash, $2,000 per kid. So simple math, you add that up, that's give or take $26,000. You make 25. Now, because of you watching this, somebody's going to get $26,000 that will transform their lives. And this is just one example of what's going on in the groundwater effect underneath us. And it's what we don't know that's killing us, what we think we know. And so I just think this is a time for us to wake up, because to quote Dr. King, we're living, in horse and buggy times, where the world's is moving at jet-like speed with or without us. And that's why I also want to get all Black businesses online. I'll talk about that later. But this doesn't have to be just a moment of despair. It can also be a moment of our opportunity and reawakening, but it's up to us.
And you know what? I've been sharing that honestly, during this whole COVID season, one of the things that I've made sure that I've shared with, folks that I mentor, people that I pastor, I told them that even though we're in this season of isolation and seclusion, even though we're in this season of quarantine, that this is a season when we need to re-envision, a season that we need to reimagine, a season that we need to forecast, because I've had nothing but time to re-envision how we gonna do church in the 21st century. If I didn't have this time to go in and to make sure that I was able to be seen on all of these different platforms, this was a time for me to reimagine. So I've been honestly, because of my travel schedule, because of my music, because of the things I was doing, I was always gone. So I didn't get a time to really be able to sit back and think through and do the things that I've been able to do now. So I'm excited about what has transpired as it pertains to me being able to navigate and to be able to forecast in this new season. But at the same token, this is a question that I want to ask any of you all, and you all can just throw it out. I said, how do you amplify the message of transparency and trust to Black communities to ease fears and to build awareness by literally disseminating proper information about the COVID vaccine? Because again, we all have information, but it's so differing. I mean, it's so strange. People are afraid for multiplicity of reasons. Just like Dr. Elizabeth said, a lot of people were told that we couldn't get it. I mean, Mr. Morrell was like, Black folks can't get COVID. But then the majority of the people that get it is in our community because it's based upon, health and things of that nature. So my question is what can we do more?
So
in the church community or what have you, what can we do more to get that information, quality information?
Bishop, we need to meet people where they are, which means don't dismiss their concerns about safety and efficacy and side effects. They're real concerns, but then we have to help people decide how they're going to make a decision, because life is a decision-making process. And no decision is without risk. So where's the greater risk for us? To not take it and continue to see a disproportionate number of Black deaths, or to take it and risk that it may not work. I may have some side effects that are mild, but then I may be able to move into a situation where I don't have to wear masks all the time and I can move on. Number two, I think important in this discussion are the voices of Black scientists, doctors, and nurses. A Black woman by the name of Kizzmekia Corbett, trained by Freeman Hrabowski, the legendary scientist and president of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, African American, was at the center of the development of this vaccine. This vaccine has been in development for many, 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 many years, but it was accelerated over the last year based on COVID. Another prominent African-American scientist, Dr. James Hildreth, the president of Meharry Medical College, was on the review panel that reviewed, I believe, one of these vaccines. There are African Americans involved in the process. The, if you will, clinical trial population for this vaccine was more diverse than any in history. We have to give people facts, and we have to encourage them to make an intelligent choice. Tomorrow I will say, my hopes are greater than my fears.
Yeah.
And my physician has said it's good to take the vaccine. I'm going to trust that taking it is better than not taking it, with the hope that it encourages others. We have to recognize that there are fears and there is lack of trust. And there may be people in our community that we cannot convince, that we cannot allay their concerns. But the important thing is accurate information from responsible people. And I go where I was before. If you're hesitant, don't take my word for it. Consult an expert, consult a physician, go to a nurse practitioner, consult a healthcare professional. They can tell you no medicine, no vaccine is perfect. There's some limited side effects that you do have to deal with, but on balance, is it better and less of a risk to take it than not to take it? So we have to, pastors and leaders and all of us have to be patient to walk through, I think, the steps and the thoughts, and not just get out there and say, y'all stupid, y'all don't want to do this, don't do that. Look, we got to meet people where they are, and we have to acknowledge, but you're right. We cannot let our fears control our decision making.
Dr. Elizabeth, let me ask this question. Okay, let me just keep it 100. Like, the reality is that a lot of times, you know, and I get what Mr. Muriel is saying. Go to your physician, talk to your, nurse practitioner. But what about those in the community that don't have a family doctor that they can go to, that they can communicate with? As a leader in my community, what do you suggest that pastors do? What do you suggest that we do within our community in order to make sure that we can get that information that is needed to those who may not have a family practitioner or a family doctor that they go to on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I would suggest that you continue to host these kinds of forums, and even for your church. I mean, I've done a couple this month, and with us all being virtual, it's easy to be in a lot of places at one time. And I've been really, excited to see pastors taking this leadership, creating forums, people logging on through Zoom, and asking a lot of questions. So there's a lot of curiosity about the vaccine and about how it works and what are the potential side effects and those kinds of things. But I also think it's important, and we call people like this either vaccine ambassadors or vaccine champions, that is, there are people in your congregation who have gotten the vaccine, and they can come and tell that story. I can tell you, and I've told this story so many times, but I was, probably it's been over a month ago now, I was at a hair salon, and there was all the talk was about the vaccine, and only one person at that time was going to get it. Everybody else said they were going to wait. And there was all this debate about, I'm going to wait, I don't know, I'm going to see. Well, and my hairstylist was one of the people who was going to wait. But then she had gone to the pharmacy like a few days later to pick up, something. And then she asked, like, what do you have to do to get that vaccine? She was just inquiring. And the pharmacist says, well, if you want it, I can give it to you right now. And so she said, well, I don't know, I didn't come to get it. But anyway, she got the vaccine. And so by the time I saw her, let's say maybe 2 weeks later, she couldn't say enough about how glad she was she had done it. She said, I'm around a lot of people, all the things that we say, right? Mm-hmm. And anyway, so and I know, just like she told me, she told everybody else who came in. And then 2 weeks later, she told me again. I was like, yeah, you told me about that the last time. But the other thing that happens, a friend of mine like her whole household got infected, and her husband developed a COVID pneumonia and was hospitalized. And he was in the hospital for like 5 or 7 days. And she called me and she said, look, I need you to tell me about this vaccine, because she says, I can't go through what my husband went through, right? And so, they ultimately, the whole family, has gotten vaccinated, but it's the discussion we've had about risk and benefit, right? I mean, what are you gonna choose? And I also told her, I said, we don't hear a lot about this, but Black men have been dying the most around COVID-19.
Hold on a minute, because the reason why I want to stop you
I'm
there,
gonna have to
because I was just told today by a physician, is the number like in the 70 percentile?
I don't have a percentage in front of me, and I would not want to tell you the wrong thing. I just know that data that I've just seen recently was around the loss in life expectancy.
Right.
That Black men have lost like 3 years.
Oh.
When we want to gain life expectancy.
Yeah.
We're not trying to lose it. And, and it takes decades to like raise life expectancy. And so, and there have been some articles about this, but I think we need to do more research so that we can give you good data.
Yeah.
And let me say,
I have to excuse myself to catch another meeting. So thank you for having me today, Bishop, and
thank you so much,
co-panelists. God bless you.
God bless, Ms. Moria. Have a great day.
Let me say about Black death. I agree with the Urban League president. We can't browbeat people, but it is almost like there are muggers outside my house killing people, and I want to have a discussion about it. You can't do that. We are dying at alarming rates every single day. So I put it on Black leadership. I put it on pastors. The same question you asked about what should we do now? Well, chances are, if your pastor was not informed about other issues, they're not going to be informed about this one either. They're going to go on their feelings. And I'm sorry. I'm tired of seeing Black people disproportionately victimized. We then enhance that by being fearful. The truth of the matter is, everyone on this call and everyone who's watching, I'll bet you, can tell you of people they know who got COVID and died. Yeah. Back in March, I was on a committee, because I'm at the university, who was concerned about the death rate that was projected in sub-Saharan Africa, knowing that Africa had so few resources, so little money. We said, how can we prevent the deaths in Sub-Saharan Africa? Well, guess what? 9 months later, the death rate in the US is 10 times higher than it is in sub-Saharan Africa. And most of those people are Black people and brown. So what else do we have to convince people of? We are dying, and leadership has to become united in our voices and accurate in our information, and say without equivocation, there is no reason to wait. If you wait, you increase your family's risk of dying. And we've seen that. We've seen people with COVID who have long-term COVID, who now have heart disease, lung disease, neurologic disease. These things are real. We see it every day. And I think it's abhorrent that Black leaders are still saying, well, I'm not sure yet. Why aren't you sure? Then you need to get on the stick, because your people are dying because you're waiting, and I'm not sure what you're waiting for. We have the tools now with mitigation and with the vaccines to eradicate COVID. But if we keep on waiting, we'll have more mutations, we'll have a greater risk of having severe disease, and it won't do us any good by waiting. We've got to act now. This is a genuine crisis.
Well, I'm hoping and praying that from this conversation, I know young pastors, and again, pastors that are younger than I am. Let me just be perfectly honest, because they look at me now as, as the old guy in the game after being here for a long time. But I'm realizing that the younger pastor, they're serious about making sure and ensuring the health and welfare and well-being of their church. We know of organizational churches who their leadership has been just decimated, because of the simple fact that, they still were doing funerals and events and things of that nature. And it has ravaged, for the sake of a better word, their congregations and their church organizations. John, give us some last words, some insight, if you can, as it pertains to what do you think that we need to do next? Not just based upon COVID, because we already know it's a given, and I'm going to say this: get the vaccine. I got mine. I'm making sure that everybody that's connected to me is going to get theirs. I'm very, very soon. And I thank you, Dr. Lyburn. You gave me a great idea to be able to grab members of my church and sit and do a Zoom on a Bible study night, where all we're going to talk about is those that have gotten the shot, the results that they have experienced. And even I'm going to grab a few members that have had COVID, those that had it from the standpoint of just being at home. But then my head deacon was in the hospital and had to go through rehab and all types of things in order to get back to where he is. So I want to have a conversation so each individual understands each stage. But you brought up something, John, as it pertains to the economy too. I just want to give you last words on this. Go ahead and just talk to us about, this whole piece of how we need to navigate from this moment on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one piece of good, first of all, it's a very, very important conversation, extraordinarily important. One piece of good news from all this, for years, I was arguing with the dude in my mind in the restroom at the airport who didn't wash his hands.
Now he washing his hands.
And went to go grabbing on everybody and shaking hands. No, man. Now you need to convince anybody to wash their hands.
No.
Everybody's got a little sanitation thing in their pocket, or I love it. Everybody's obsessed with the clean. Good. I guess what I'm trying to say is we can't just obsess on the problem.
Right.
God willing, the creek don't rise. We gonna get through this, but because everybody else is looking around the corner and they're already focused on the rainbow after the storm. So let me give some good news. The book, The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes, great book.
University of Illinois study proved that at 5% role models, every community stabilizes. Not 80% role models, not 50,
5,
not 20, 5. Now, that's in stabilized time over a period of time. I get that. So in the middle of a crisis, you need, let's say you need 20%, you need 25%. But when the mask thing first came out, I ain't wearing no mask. Now when I go around, I basically see 50% of people in masks. And I think that number is growing. I'm seeing everybody who's got any sense that I know saying, where can I get a shot? People want to get a shot like they want to get a VI, like they want to get a ticket to the All-Star game. Where can I get that shot, man?
That's right.
So I think that look, Black folks, we respond to, I hate to say it, it's celebrity and popularity. We do. We already have a bunch of celebrities coming out saying, I'm for this. It's becoming more and more popular. I really believe we're reaching a tipping point where you're going to see this thing become the norm, just like masks are becoming the norm. We're incredibly resilient, right? We just are cynical for good reasons. And a lot of you already discussed, Mark, why we got reason to be concerned. But ultimately, we come around because we are connected to, we want to live.
Right.
And so we come around to some common sense. But here's what everybody's missing in the middle of all this. What did Malcolm X say? We've been bamboozled. We've been tricked. We've been fooled.
Run them up.
The Wall Street value went up $1 trillion in 12 months. In 2020. My billionaire friends raised $300 billion of net worth in 2020.
In COVID.
Look, in all honesty, my net worth has gone up in 2020. I mean, it's just real talk. And so there's two economies, Bishop. There's the investor economy and there's the real economy. This one is doing really well.
Yeah.
They're invested in stocks. They're zooming at home. They're centered in technology, because that, if you want to be a growth anything, you have to be a growth centered in technology. A technology centered church, a technology centered CDC, a technology centered Boys and Girls Club, nonprofit, for-profit, small business, big business. That's the future. And e-commerce, I mean, I don't know nobody who didn't shop online at Christmas. E-commerce has changed and it's not going back.
It's not.
I didn't Zoom anybody before February of last year. Now I've got Zoom on the brain. Now I'm gonna, when this moderates, we'll go back. We love people, but we're probably gonna have to be half digital for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely.
So we got to pivot to the you need to do a whole nother conference on the opportunity. Opportunities now are everywhere. Everywhere. Let me give you an example. People like single family homes now, front yard, backyard. I'm the largest minority controlled owner of single family rental homes in America. Have nothing to do with operational, but it's a Promise Homes company. That company just went up in value. People want to, for the same cost of living in an apartment building, with somebody above you, below you, around you, they want distance. So let me rent an apartment. Rent a home. So you're watching this, look in your neighborhood. Unfortunately, there's going to be opportunities. People are going to lose their home. Somebody's going to buy it. I know it sounds ruthless. Somebody's going to buy it. It might as well be you. Buy it, rehab it, rent it, and hold it. Do not sell. If you want to make sure you got a hedge fund against poverty for the rest of your life, buy 3 homes, 1 to live in and 2 to rent. And you will build net worth. You'll provide affordable housing in your neighborhood. And if you're a church, or as we said in my neighborhood growing up, a church, you want to buy the block around your neighborhood and do the same thing.
That's right.
There aren't growing any more land. It's gone up since the beginning of time in value. Stock market and land have done this. Yeah, it dips, but it always dips like this. It dips and goes up, right? So I'm saying to everybody, you need to reimagine your future. I've launched the 1 Million Black Business Initiative with a $130 million commitment from Shopify to create 1 million new Black businesses by 2030. That sort of bold, audacious thinking is what we should be. Basically, yeah, I'd like to create new businesses, but we got 2.6 million Black businesses right now that are on the horse and buggy deal. Basically, they're not connected. Let's get them online, because that's the future.
That's it.
And so, yeah, I want jobs. I want economic opportunity. I see social justice through an economic lens. And I see what's going on right now as an opportunity. It's never been more popular to be Black in your life than right now. I mean, people, you walk down the street, you're halfway telling somebody trying to hire you. We need to be Black engineers. We need to be Black managers, Black scientists, Black doctors, Black lawyers. We need to be Black real estate agents, investors. We need to make smart sexy again at scale. This is the 3rd reconstruction, in my opinion, between now and 2030, and it's going to be economic in nature. The new color is green. I'm done.
Well, you know what? I want to say to each and every one of you all, thank you so very much for taking time out of your very, very busy schedules and for sharing this information. You know, Dr. Lyburn, thank you so much for being with us and giving us some insight on the things that we need to look at. Of course, Dr. Smith, you know, you've known me since I was a teenager, and you know, I had to have you to be a part of this just simply because, you know, the wealth of knowledge that you carry. And again, the challenge, look, don't be afraid, go for it. And, you know, Mark Moriel, who did an excellent job being with us when he could be here there for the time he was here. And last but not least, John, thank you, because we do need to understand that there is a post-COVID world. And what are we going to do post-COVID? You know, because we have opportunity and we need to take advantage of it. And I'm going to get in contact with you offline later, because there are some things that I definitely want to do. Some things I definitely want to do and need to do in this 21st century move, and being focused on making sure that we do what the Bible says, and that is leaving an inheritance for our children's children. So I'm excited about it. Thank you all again. Listen, this conversation was about us coming together, getting a clear understanding of what we need to do post-COVID, as well as we got the praise him in place. We talked about COVID in Black America. I love you guys to life. Not doggone thing you can do about it. I had a great time facilitating this moment, and prayerfully, hopefully, the next facilitator will be better than me, and will, just take it to the next level. My prayer for simply everybody is that the rest of your days will be the best of your days. This is Marvin Sapp. I'm out. Grace and peace.